Good afternoon and welcome to my presentation. I would like to introduce you some new low-labeled resin blends for epoxy flooring applications. So you may have heard that last year the labeling of some reactive diluent changed and became more severe, like for example the C12, C14 glycidulator. And so this became more severe, and the question is, of course, is it possible to offer low-labeled alternatives while keeping the performance of the product? So if we look at the story a bit behind the labeling, so beginning of last year, the classification of the C12, C14 glycidulator became more severe, so it became a reprotoxic 1B and got the exploding chest labeling. This is not only impacting the product itself, but also all the mixtures containing at least 0.3% of the products. So in fact, more or less all the blends containing these products are impacted, like, for example, our Epicoat or Resin 240. For certain applications, certifications, for example, the emission approval Epicoat, and if you look at some customer internal rules where they simply decided not to use this kind of CMR substances in their formulation, it is clear that CMR-free resin blends are required. And this is why we are launching new low-label resin blends as alternative to our Epicoat 240. So those products are part of our new EpoVive product range, which are offering a safer handling of the products thanks to the lower labeling. So we are talking here about the Epicoat 221, the Epicoat 901 and Epicoat 902. So these are free AF resin diluted with reactive diluents, while 901 and 902 are bio-based products, so containing a bio-based reactive diluent. And in the following slides, we will compare those three blends with a standard Epicoat 240. Key for this development was, of course, to have something which is easy to formulate. So easy to formulate thanks to the physical properties. So it was really important to have a product with the same viscosity, with a similar equivalent. And it is what you can see here, so the specification of a 240. So we are at the same viscosity level and the equivalent for an easy one-to-one replacement in your formulation. Easy to formulate also thanks to the reactivity of the system. So here it has been combined with our cycloaliphatic curing agent, EPQ 542. So you can see that the part life, gel time, especially for the 221, is a kind of spot on in comparison to the 240. For the 901 and 902, we are still in the same range of reactivity. So here also quite easy to replace a formulation based on the 240 or a similar blend by one of those alternatives. If we look now at the performance of the systems, here we check the drying time and the curing with the back color test, where we applied a clear coat on glass as a thickness of 200 micron, tested at room temperature and at 10 degrees. So you can see that the hard gel, for example, is very similar for all the products. Even at 10 degrees, hard gel very similar for 221 and 901. One interesting point, especially for the 902, that even in this case, the hard gel and more resistance are even faster in comparison to the other ones. So we will find this back in some other properties in the next slides. If we look at the shoddy hardness, here again measured in combination with our EPQ 542, so at room temperature and 10 degrees again. So you can see for the 221 exactly the same final hardness. For 2 bio-based products, we are slightly lower. Here we are just talking about 5 to 6 units. So instead of 80, 81 shoddy hardness, we are at 75, 76. But which should be normally more than sufficient for main of flooring applications. And also at 10 degree, of course, a bit slower hardness development due to the lower temperature, but exactly the same final hardness for 240 and 221, and here the bio-base similar at what we saw at room temperature. If we look the hardness development in thin layers, so he applied in 200 micron, where we measured the pendulum hardness. You can see also a similar development for all the products. Of course, 240, 221, very close in the end hardness, and the 2 bio-based product slightly lower. At 10 degree, again, 221, 240, very similar. And as you could see, the somehow better development or behavior of a 902 in the back color test. You see here as well, at an early stage, a very similar hardness development with a 902. And of course, a bit lower in the end hardness in comparison to 240 and 221, but still, more than sufficient in most of the cases. We also had a look, especially for decorative applications, top coat and self-leveling, at the surface appearance and the early water resistance of the systems. Here to explain a little bit, we applied a kind of red formulation in a lid. After 4 hours, we applied 10 drops of water here. After 8 hours, again 10 drops. After 24 hours and 48 hours to do the evaluation of the products. And then we have a kind of 2 scores which are mentioned in this table. The first one is, let's say, for the kind of deformation that you have at the beginning of the curing, where the product is still not gelled. So you have the formation of a kind of crater. Then the product is gelling and you don't see this kind of deformation anymore. And after a certain time, you may see, especially at 10 degree and high humidity, the formation of white marks, of the carbamation on the surface. So you can see that for the 221, 901, we are, let's say, at the level of a 240. Very interesting for the 902 is that from 24 hours, even a bit earlier, here you don't see any trace anymore. And you can see it very nice on the next pictures. So at room temperature, normally everything is always looking good. So more interesting is what is happening at 10 degree. So you can see that those 2 alternatives are very similar to the 240, especially the 902. After 24 hours and 48 hours, you don't see any carbamation anymore. And the surface is also somehow more glossy than what you can see with a reference. So an interesting finding here with this new blend. If we look at the yellowing resistance, here especially interesting if you go for decorative application, top coat, self-leveling. So here in the left graph, it was again in combination with our Epicure 542. So you can see that all the blends are at least as good as the 240. For 902, tendentially even slightly better. On the right graph, here we combine with our Epicure 596, which has been specially designed for low yellowing and decorative application. So again, you can see that all the blends are more or less at the same level, so all together. But of course, the yellowing itself much lower than with the 542. So here it was not really to make the promotion of the 596, but just to show that all the blends are at least as good as the 240. So, with all those three blends, so we have really a wide range of applications. In combination with our Azures curing agents, which are curing agent which doesn't contain any SVHC and CMR substances. So we have seen in the previous slide, for example, our versatile curing agent 542, for example, for primers, top coat, self-leveling, roller coating. We have seen as well for the decorative applications, so the good UV resistance of the 596. But we have also a longer pot life version of our versatile grade, the 542, which is the 530. We have also the Epicure 571 with a slightly lower viscosity, which is also very interesting for primers, grouts, and simply high filled systems. We have the Epicure 561, which is offering an improved chemical resistance. A typical proper application in this case would be secondary containments. And we have also our Epicure 541, especially for fast curing, even at lower temperatures. So which could be used for primers, for grouts, but also for construction adhesives. So the takeaways to summarize, so our Epicoat 221 with excellent mechanical properties and a moderate odor. We have our Epicoat 901 with good mechanical properties, low odor, and a bio-based reactive diluent. And our Epicoat 902, which is bringing also good mechanical properties, an improved surface appearance and carbamation resistance, also with low odor, and which is also containing a bio-based product. So thank you for your attention.